Good morning, boys and girls. I can't wait to start reading a new book to you, Because of Winn Dixie, by Kate D. Camillo. I'm hoping you've heard of it. Maybe you've even seen the movie, but one of my favorite things to do with you in class every day is to spend 10 or 15 minutes reading to you. So here is an option for you to tune in and watch me read a chapter a day and keep up with this fantastic book called Because of Winn Dixie. First, I want to tell you about the author. Kate D. Camillo lived in the south of the USA for most of her childhood and studied at the University of Florida. She writes for children and adults and was awarded a 1998 McKnight Artist Fellowship for Writers. About Because of Winn Dixie, a Newbery Honor Book for 2001, she says, "This book is, I hope, a hymn of praise to dogs, friendship, and the South." Kate D. Camillo currently lives in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is not in the South. Chapter 1. My name is India Opal Bologna, and last summer my daddy, the preacher, sent me to the store for a box of macaroni and cheese, some white rice, and 2 tomatoes. And I came back with a dog. This is what happened. I walked into the produce section of the Winn-Dixie grocery store to pick out my 2 tomatoes, and I almost bumped right into the store manager. He was standing there all red-faced, screaming and waving his arms around. "Who let the dog in here?" he kept on shouting. "Who let a dirty dog in here?" At first, I didn't see a dog. There were just a lot of vegetables rolling around on the floor, tomatoes and onions and green peppers. And there was what seemed like a whole army of Winn-Dixie employees running around, waving their arms just the same way the store manager was waving his. And then the dog came running around the corner. He was a big dog and ugly. He looked like he was having a real good time. His tongue was hanging out and he was wagging his tail. He skidded to a stop and smiled right at me. I had never before in my life seen a dog smile, but that is what he did. He pulled back his lips so hard to show me all his teeth, and he wagged his tail so hard that he knocked some oranges off a display, and they went rolling everywhere, mixing with the tomatoes and onions and green peppers. The manager screamed, "Somebody grab that dog!" The dog went running over to the manager, wagging his tail and smiling. He stood up on his hind legs. You could tell all he wanted to do was get face to face with that manager and thank him for the good time that he was having in the produce department. But somehow he ended up knocking the manager over, and the manager must have been having a bad day because lying there on the floor right in front of everybody, he started to cry. The dog leaned over him real concerned and licked his face. "Please," the manager said, "somebody call the pound." "Wait a minute," I hollered. "That's my dog. Don't call the pound." All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me, and I knew I had done something big. And maybe stupid too, but I couldn't help it. I couldn't let that dog go to the pound. "Here, boy," I said. The dog stopped licking the manager's face, put his ears up in the air, and looked at me like he was trying to remember who I was. "Here, boy," I said again, and then I figured that the dog was probably just like everybody else in the whole wide world, that he wanted to get called by a name. Only I didn't know what his name was, so I just said the first thing that came in my head. I said, "Here, Winn-Dixie." At that, the dog trotted over to me just like he'd been doing it his whole life. The manager sat up and gave me a hard stare like I was making fun of him. "It's his name," I said. "Honest." The manager said, "Don't you know not to bring a dog in the grocery store?" "Yes, sir," I told him. He got in by mistake. I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "Come on, Winn-Dixie," I said to the dog. I started walking, and he followed along behind me. As I went out of the produce department, down the cereal aisle, past all the cashiers, and out the door. Once we were safe outside, I checked him over real careful. He didn't look that good. He was big and skinny. You could see all his ribs. There were bald patches all over him in places where he didn't have any fur at all. Mostly, he looked like a big old piece of brown carpet that had been left out in the rain. "You're a mess," I told him. "I bet you don't even belong to anybody." He smiled at me. He did that thing again where he pulled his lips back and showed his teeth. He smiled so big that it made him sneeze. It was like he was saying, "I know I'm a mess. Isn't it funny?" It's hard not to immediately fall in love with a dog who has a good sense of humor. "Come on," I told him. "Let's see what the preacher has to say about you." And the two of us, me and Winn-Dixie, started walking home. There are no pictures, and that is the end of chapter 1. I have truly enjoyed reading aloud to you, and I cannot wait to do more as the week progresses, or next week, or however long we're going to be apart. I miss you all dearly, and I can't wait to see what the preacher says when India Opal Baloney, fun last name, huh, comes home with a dog that looks like a wet piece of carpet left out in the rain, or a brown piece of carpet left out in the rain. Love y'all. Take care. Bye bye.